Like, don't you think I could be the greatest sports journalist ever?
Mm-hmm. I'm just giving you a chance. You haven't been shown.
It is another week of the Lachelle Show, and I am Lachelle Smith. I want to give a warning for this episode. We have a lot to discuss. Things change so fast in sports that things that we talked about last episode, we already have answers to in this episode. Number one thing, Giannis Antetokounmpo has officially been traded, and we are going to discuss the trade and his new team. The NBA world right now is on fire. We got free agency. We got trade talks. We just had the NBA draft. We're going to talk about the winners and the losers of the draft and the number one overall pick. And you know we're going to discuss some trades because the Minnesota Timberwolves just got Anthony Edwards some help. And we're going to talk about Brendan Sorsby because we have a new update and the NFL has officially entered the chat and they believe that consequences must be given. And I'm going to give some too early predictions for teams to watch out for in a few sports. So let's get ready. We have breaking news live on the Lachelle Show. Ja Morant has officially been traded from the Memphis Grizzlies to the Portland Trail Blazers for Jeremy Grant and Chris Murray. Let me tell you, I sat there a few days ago and I made a video saying how Ja Morant wasn't damaged goods. Now, his contract is hefty, and that is why a lot of teams weren't wanting to trade for him. But a conversation was about his value, that he was no longer good enough for the market. But I understood that Memphis had to move on from Ja. Ja needed to move on from Memphis. He has been dealing with injuries. And I don't really want to bring up his off-the-court stuff because that was a couple years ago. And he hasn't really been in trouble since then. But this was the right move. I didn't expect Portland. I'm just going to be honest. But the fact that they only gave up Jeremy Grant and Chris Murray for Ja does tell me that his trade value was pretty low in the market. But I'm glad that this trade finally happened. While we're talking about trades that finally happened, we have to talk about the Giannis trade. Giannis has finally been traded. The long-awaited saga, if he will be traded, if he will not, is officially over. He is now a member of the Miami Heat. Last episode, I told you guys that I thought the Boston Celtics were going to win the trade with Giannis. And I felt like that's where everything was leaning towards. And honestly, that was going to be terrifying for the league if they were going to be able to get Giannis. But it looks like Miami had a better package. Now, Miami gave up a lot. And I'm going to say they gave up a lot in terms of quantity. But in quality, they didn't really give up any big pieces that I think Pat Riley was very adamant on that he did not want to move on from. Now, in the Boston Celtics package, they were willing to give up Jaylen Brown and 2 first-round picks. With the Miami Heat, they were willing to give up Tyler Hero, Khalil Ware, Jaime Jaquez Jr., and another young player, and then 3 first-round picks. And in that, a lot of those picks aren't top picks. A lot of these are pick swaps. A lot of people felt like they gave away their future. I was surprised that Khalil Ware was in the package because he is a very young talent. I wasn't so surprised that Jaime Jaquez Jr. was in there and then Tyler Hero because he was already in the conversations. But they gave up a lot to get Giannis. Now, the Milwaukee Bucks had the choice. You take the offer from the Celtics, you get Jaylen Brown. You take the offer from the Miami Heat, you get some more draft capital. And it sounds like the Bucks wanted the draft capital. One thing that they did highlight is that they felt like if they were to get Jaylen Brown, that they were not confident that he would want to stay there long term and actually be a cornerstone. Will he only be here for a little bit, then he would try to leave? And they didn't really want to risk that, so they went with the Miami Heat's offer. The biggest thing for the Miami Heat that they did not want to get away from was Bam. That was an untouchable, and I believe Pat Riley has been very consistent on that. The one problem that they do have is that now you need to fill out the rest of this roster. When you are looking at what the team has right now, we're looking at Davion Mitchell, Norman Powell, Andrew Wiggins, and then Giannis and Bam as a starting 5, and that's just not going to work. Giannis works best when he is surrounded by shooters, and the Heat are going to have to get more shooters. Now, they still do have young talent on that roster. They do still have players that they can put into those roles. roles, but there are still some pieces that they need to get, and they need to get quickly. Right now, this team is not ready to compete. It is not ready to make a deep playoff run. Even with adding Giannis, this team has to evolve a little bit better. But I am not afraid of what is going to happen because I believe in Eric Spoelstra. Spo is a great coach, and I believe that he could work with less and make it as great as he possibly can. He just needs the roster to be able to do it with whatever that looks like. And we've seen Spo work with less and make it to a finals. So that is not what I'm worried about. But this would have been a terrifying trade if the Celtics actually did get Giannis. I'm happy that it worked out. I'm happy that Pat Riley finally got the big fish he's been trying to get for a very, very, very long time, it feels like. We have heard the Heat have been in multiple conversations of, we're trading for this star, we're going to get this star, and then no one wants to come and play, or they can't get the trade done because Pat Riley's scared to just put all the chips in the middle of the table. This time he put all the chips at the middle of the table and said, hey, this is what we got. This is what we're willing to give. Can we get Giannis in return? And they win the trade, and they get Giannis, and they get Bobby Portis. So for the Miami Heat, kudos, great job. I know some people don't believe in the team, but just for them to get the trade done and get Giannis, that type of superstar, that caliber of player, you already up your level as a team just because of that. They still got some things that they need to do, and I expect them to make some more moves. Free agency is about to be crazy. There's a lot of player options getting declined. Some players are willing to be on the move. So I don't think this is the last move that the Miami Heat are going to make. While we're talking about moves, let's keep talking about what's happening in the NBA because the Minnesota Timberwolves just made a big move. We're officially in the peak of parity right now in the NBA. And with parity comes teams that are saying, forget those picks. We got to make trades. We got to be competitive. I've been saying that the Minnesota Timberwolves are in a very short window with Anthony Edwards, and they had to get him a number 2 scorer. They had to make some moves. One, they trade Julius Randle over to the Brooklyn Nets. That was the first indication that they were about to move on, which was the right decision. The second move is that I believe that the Timberwolves needed a point guard, but also another threat that can also be able to take control of the offense and allow Ant to slide into his number 2 shooting guard role and allow him to be able to hunt and attack his shots. Looks like the Minnesota Timberwolves front office agreed because they called up the Charlotte Hornets. I did not expect this, but they traded for LaMelo Ball and Josh Green and gave up Naz Reid in a series of draft picks, okay? The Hornets get Naz Reid, which I know that was probably very hard for them to part ways with Naz, but that was the right decision. And they received a 2033 unprotected first-round pick and 3 second-round picks, 2029, 2032, and 2033. Charlotte also gets first-round pick swaps in 2028, 2029, and 2030. If you ask me, forget the picks. It is all about winning right now in the NBA. You have to be competitive. And for the Minnesota Timberwolves, a team that has seen certain success in the playoffs, but not being able to really get to the finals with a young superstar in Anthony Edwards, this is the right move. I get people have their reservations about LaMelo, but it actually works out when we're talking about adding a player that, one, averages 20 plus points per game, but also averages 7 assists a game. And that was the biggest thing that Minnesota needed, was a point guard. Someone that can finally kind of take over the reins of the offense and allow Ant to play more off the ball. That was the biggest thing during the playoffs. Ant was having to play point guard, and he's not a point guard. And it didn't allow him to really get his flow in the offense because then teams were just able to throw doubles at him, get the ball out of his hands, and he couldn't really get it back. Adding LaMelo gives you a shooting threat for one, because now you can't double either. If you double Ant too much, you're going to leave him in isolation one-on-one situations. You can't have that. If you sit there and you double Ant, then you leave LaMelo out there by himself that can sit there and rattle off 10 threes in a blink of an eye. It's just something that now you have to pick your poison, which is what Minnesota needed. Now you can't focus all your attention on Ant, but you also can't focus all your attention on LaMelo, and he is a pass type of guard that has no problem getting everybody their touches and getting everyone in position. I think for LaMelo, this is the best thing. Playing serious basketball with a player like Ant, and no matter how you feel about Ant, Ant does take this basketball thing serious, and you could tell it has bothered him that he hasn't been able to kind of get over this hump now, and he understands it. I think it's good for LaMelo to be in this type of atmosphere where winning is really, really important for them, and it's a must-win type of situation that they're in with Ant. And I believe adding this duo together, we might see Ant hit career highs in scoring. I believe he'll be in the MVP conversation, allowing him to be in his true position as shooting guard. I think is just going to raise that offense to a completely different level. They're going to play with a lot of fun, intensity. They're going to sell a lot of tickets and a lot of jerseys, but they're also going to play really fast. And what we saw in the playoffs, that is something that teams have to have. And LaMelo has that type of gear. One thing Melo is going to have to get better at is defense. And I think for Minnesota, that's collectively what they're going to hang their hat on as well. But the good thing for Minnesota is that they didn't give up Jaden McDaniels, which I would believe that that was a very big deal in that entire package, that maybe he was also an untouchable. But I'm glad that they were able to pull the trigger a little bit and really go ahead and say, hey, we're going to be competitive. We're trying to win. We're not going to play it safe. We have a young superstar. We want to keep him happy because we don't want him leaving anytime soon. And it was being reported that Ant was frustrated. He needed help and he needed them to make certain moves. And they did exactly that. So shout out to the Minnesota Timberwolves. For the Charlotte Hornets, I mean, you got a ton of picks. You get Naz Reid. I still think that they are building something. I think it surprised a lot of people that they moved off of LaMelo, but I think his stock was so high from just the play-in and everything that this was the right time to make this move, especially when you are seeing situations where they were benching him in the fourth quarter. I just don't think it was a lot of synergy that they had at that point, coaching and with Melo, that it was time for both of them to move on. And again, this was the best time, and they get a lot of picks in return, and you get Naz Reid. They still have a very young team with a lot of promise, so I expect the Hornets will be okay. We're still talking about the NBA though, because just because some trades happen, we got to talk about the trades that didn't happen and how it's kind of awkward to go back to your team knowing that they tried to get rid of you, not once but twice. I believe that Jaylen Brown has every reason to not want to be a member of the Boston Celtics. Hear me out. You could feel how you feel about Jaylen Brown for whatever reason, but we're not going to deny what he was able to do this season with Jason Tatum out. He did exactly what they expected he was not going to be able to do. They thought that that was going to be a tanking type of year, that they weren't going to be in playoff contention. He led that team. He averaged 28 points per game, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, and was shooting 47% from the field, an all-star. He was the best player for them, offensively and defensively. And the trade for Giannis isn't disrespectful. I think you understand your quality as a player if you are in a trade package for Giannis. You understand that you must be pretty good. This is the second time the Celtics have tried to trade away Jaylen Brown. They tried to trade him for Kevin Durant. It didn't work. And then now they tried to trade him for Giannis. It didn't work. Again, flattering that you were traded for two really, really, really great players, superstars. But now this is where I look at Brad Stevens in the Celtics front office and I say, what are we doing? Because it seems out of character that, okay, you couldn't get your big fish, but now you're still in trade talks about moving Jaylen Brown. And at this point, they're okay with not even getting a star. Now they just want about 4 first-round picks for him. And a part of me is confused. There is no way that, yes, you had a first-round exit. Yes, you lost in 7 to the 76ers. But that is no reason to panic and blow the whole thing up. I don't believe that that is needed. I do believe that they needed to make moves and maybe some other trades for other players. I think a conversation about Derek White should be moved. You know, I think there are certain players that, yes, but the Boston Celtics lost the first round, 1, because they got walked down. 2, they were in game 7 continuing to shoot threes and not even run an offense. And 3, they didn't really have a consistent big man. So those problems were not a Jaylen Brown and a Jason Tatum problem, but I don't understand this eagerness that now it's just like we got to move from him. And this is where I look at the Celtics front office, and it's almost disappointing because you could tell that they already imagined a life moving on from Jaylen Brown, and they don't want to imagine a life with him still on this team now. And as a finals MVP, he deserves the same respect that, hey, maybe we should just try to make this work. Maybe we need to call him, make sure he's comfortable to still be here. But it seems like that hasn't been happening. It looks like they're like, look, he's leaving this team one way or another. And it also feels like Boston was very confident that they were going to get Giannis. They felt like this is enough. We'll be able to get rid of it. I don't think that they really thought about the ramifications of their choice. And now they are dealing with the consequences of it. The Celtics have now bagged themselves into a wall that it looks like they have no choice but to move on. But now you want 4 first-round picks. Now, there's some teams that can make a pull for Jaylen Brown. I believe the Golden State Warriors can make a pull. Even if you go 3 first-round picks and another player, I think Boston would budge. It is obvious that they just want a ton of first-round picks and they just want to move on from them. So there's a few teams that I do believe still got a haul of first-round picks that you can at least push to the middle of the table and insert 1 or 2 players. Now, if I'm a front office, like I said, the Warriors, they have a few first-round picks. I would be pushing the 3 that I have and adding Pajimski or someone else to the pile and saying, hey, we want Jaylen Brown, personally. If I'm a few other teams around the league, if you only got 2 first-round picks, I'm pushing the 2 in the middle and I'm attaching 2 more players and saying, hey, this is what we got. We would love Jaylen Brown. There's a few teams that need to be a little bit more aggressive because the Celtics are making it clear that they are ready to trade him. Now, this is what I am going to say. The Trailblazers now getting Ja Morant tells me that more moves are about to be made. 1, Drew Holiday is about to be moved. That is one thing. 2, I'm starting to think that they are bolstering this package up to possibly make a move to Boston. And maybe that's the package. That you're not trying to give up all these first round picks, but you are okay hauling a group of players. That could be Drew Holiday. That could be Scoot Henderson. That could be Sharp. I mean, they could really send a good amount of players to get Jaylen Brown in return. So that is one thing to watch out for. But I wish the Celtics would have just handled this better. It's not smart to break up a duo that you have like that. And I understand maybe it wasn't easy, maybe it didn't work, but it seems like they made a decision for themselves that I don't think that they really had to make right now. And I think that they could have figured it out. And instead of hitting the panic button and now you're trying to like really blow up a core, it's hard to have a superstar duo. It's very hard. It's a luxury most teams don't have, and it's a luxury you look back on and wish you would have maintained and kept it. And I feel like the Boston Celtics are one move away from regret, but it looks like they're willing to make that move. When we are talking about moves being made, the NFL said, hey, we don't believe in regret. We only believe in consequences. And they gave one to Brendan Sorsby. The NFL and Roger Goodell sent a message to college football and every college football player that if you are in the situation that Brendan Sorsby is in, where you have admitted to gambling and you have done it over an extended period of time, do not think that you are going to be able to run away from consequences by coming to join our league. That is not going to happen, and we're not going to allow it to happen. So Brendan Sorsby decided that he was going to leave Texas Tech after everything that was happening and was going to enter the supplemental draft. And like I said last episode, the supplemental draft is pretty much that if a team was to draft Brendan Sorsby in the 1st or 2nd round, and they would then be giving up their 1st or 2nd round wherever they picked him in next year's draft. Well, the NFL gave an answer to Sorsby and his team and said, hey, we're not having a supplemental draft. We're not going to open up one for you because we weren't planning to do that anyway. And basically, you need to prepare for possible entry into the 2027 NFL draft. Shocked everybody. In a very strongly worded letter to Brendan Sorsby and his team for the reasons why the NFL was not budging on this and why they felt like there was more to what happened. And they said a few things that let me know that they're not playing around here. They weren't playing. They take it very serious, sports gambling. I get that this is a league that does entertain it and promote it, but it's one of those things where the NFL and Roger Goodell is like, look, don't sit here and start using your own supply. We get it. You're around it, but the job is to sell it, not to use it. And that's what it sounded like. So in this letter and notice that they sent Brendan Sorsby, they start out by saying that they have elected not to conduct a supplemental draft. And they go on to say that under the collective bargaining agreement, the league retains sole discretion to determine whether it is appropriate to conduct a supplemental draft in any given year. The league has not conducted such a draft for several years, and prior to your submission, the league had no plans to do so this year, as no other player has sought entry. So he was the only person seeking entry into the supplemental draft. They then go on to say your petition filed 3 business days before the deadline without any supporting information or documentation, and only after abandoning your recent litigation efforts to avoid NCAA sanctions does not provide a basis for the league to alter those plans. The issues presented by your petition are too significant and too closely tied to the league's core integrity interests to permit meaningful review within the timeline presented. NFL not playing. They not playing. They then go on to start just naming things. They're like, the sole reason identified in your petition for seeking entry into the supplemental draft are that you have been declared ineligible by the NCAA, have exhausted all of your avenues to continue in the NCAA, and want to now play in the NFL. Keep in mind, they're putting quotations on all of this. The petition provides no information regarding the basis for or timing of the NCAA's decision. Public sources, however, indicate that in May 2026, the NCAA issued a determination declaring you permanently ineligible from participation in college athletics based on a sustained pattern of improper gambling activity during your collegiate career at 3 different universities. They didn't stop there, though. They didn't just tell Brendan Sorsby, no, we're not going to have a supplemental draft. They are giving their reasons why. And they go on to say that they don't have a complete record of everything. But this is where I knew that they're just not playing around. It goes on to say, your petition does not address these matters. The NFL is saying that in this petition that Brendan Sorsby team sent, that they don't even really address the allegations. Well, they're not really allegations because he admitted that he did it, but that he's not even addressing the incident or what he's going to do better or how he's going to deal with this addiction that he was diagnosed with. So they go on to say, you didn't even address that in the petition. And it says, nor does it demonstrate accountability for your conduct or indicate whether or how you would adhere to the league's rules and policies governing the integrity of competition. Instead, even after receiving notice of the NCAA's decision rescinding your college eligibility in May, you sought to avoid the consequences of that determination through litigation rather than accepting responsibility for your actions. And you pursued entry into the NFL only after abandoning those efforts. They are reading him. Gosh. As Commissioner Goodell has emphasized, participation in the NFL is a privilege that carries with it significant responsibilities, including accountability. By all accounts, you are a talented player with the potential for future success. We encourage you to focus on preparing for possible entry into the NFL through the 2027 NFL Annual Draft. Man, I'm shocked at the NFL. I thought that maybe they would budge. They laid it out. Hey, we weren't trying to have a supplemental draft. We didn't plan on it. You're the only one. You didn't really talk about any of the things that happened. You also didn't take accountability. And we're not the NCAA, so guess what? It kind of does carry over. And it's funny because I think that this is a precedent that they are also setting for college football players that don't think you're going to be able to escape things that you actually should be penalized for in college by thinking you could just jump over and come over here like we also can't do the same thing. And basically what they are giving him is somewhat, quote unquote, like a 1-year ban. Very similar to what they did with Calvin Ridley, who only had placed like 3 bets. And this is a college football player that's been placing bets for over 4 years. Now, Brendan Sorsby's team said that they are going to try to fight this. His agent has came out and said multiple things. He said that the NFL basically wasn't right to deny his application for the supplemental draft, that they sent things late, and basically a whole bunch of, well, they have no right to do this. It's the NFL. They got the right to do it. They are doing it. And he says that he's going to actually go after them almost like in legal action. I'm like, that doesn't really work. If the goal is for him to play in the NFL next year, as they said, possible entry, why would you then try to go sue his future employer? But this is the kicker. The NFL says no, and it's now set off a chain reaction because everyone was like, oh, well, maybe he could go to the Canada Football League. Well, the CFL came out and basically said, yeah, we're not doing that either. I don't even think the man has applied to the CFL, and they just came out and was like, hey, we're just letting y'all know we will not be entertaining Brendan Sorsby conversations because we are also banning him over here. His only luck right now is the UFL, or he could just sit there and take this year and just not play and just prepare. But man, I didn't expect this. I didn't expect that they would be closing all these doors, but they're using him as an example. I hope that he's getting the help that he needs. I hope that he's able to build off of this and grow. I hope that he's able to apply for the 2027 NFL draft and have that entry. But man, I tell you, you think that you're getting away with something. I guess you're not getting away with anything. While we're talking about getting away with things, the Dallas Mavericks got away with something. They got a new head coach, but how they got him, that's a conversation. And it looks like the Wizards also got away with something because they held their cards close to their chest and got their #1 overall pick. The Dallas Mavericks have hired Dusty May as their new head coach. Yes, Dusty May, the Michigan Wolverines head coach. The same head coach that just won the national championship just a few months ago. He's leaving college and heading to the NBA. I believe that this is something that is going to be highlighted more in college basketball because I think with NIL, these college coaches don't want to deal with all this. They don't want to deal with the recruiting trail, the money, the boosters, the calendar. They don't want to deal with it anymore. Some of these coaches, they just want to coach and that's it. Dusty May going to Dallas, they said the biggest pull is one, the lifestyle. He didn't really like the college lifestyle anymore. And two, he wanted to coach Cooper Flagg. To me, those are all good deals. Am I shocked that Dallas felt like he was the guy? A little bit. But I can also see where they feel like he has all the intangibles to be a really good coach and really be able to build this team up because as we know, the Dallas Mavericks have a new GM. And they got some new people in there and they're trying to move this thing along to get themselves, one, in the playoffs, but also build this team to be a championship caliber team. And what better way is to get a head coach that just won a national championship? It pretty much is the best progression to do if you are a coach. You fulfill your obligations at the university and then you go on to be a professional coach. The thing that I think is making it hard for some Michigan fans to accept is that I think all the signs pointed that Dusty May wanted to see what was going to happen. He ended up getting a new contract a few months kind of prior to March Madness, and he specifically didn't sign it just yet because he went on to say that some T's needed to be crossed, I's needed to be dotted, and that he would sign it in July. That's a very specific month. That, hey, I'm going to sign it in July. July is a very peak month for the NBA. A lot of things happen. Free agency, the draft, all these things are happening. And it sounded like he was already trying to give himself some leeway just in case some job openings did open up and he was going to be able to interview for them. The fact that the Mavericks were able to keep this under wraps as long as they did is honestly remarkable because I do believe if Michigan would have caught wind of it, and maybe they did, that maybe there would have been more of an effort, one, to blow the whole thing up, or at least to give him more money or try to convince him to stay. But it seems like Dusty May understood what he was trying to do, even though he said very contradicting things that he wouldn't leave another coaching job to take another coaching job, which I guess isn't a lie because he didn't leave Michigan to take another coaching job. He's in the NBA. But it does make you wonder, what does that mean for the landscape of coaching in college basketball? Are the days gone of coaches that we saw with Coach K and a Calipari where college is their thing? That is their bread and butter. They love the NIL. They love the recruiting. They love being able to have these teams, even if they don't have national championship success all the time, but they are college coaches and they still have input and impact in the league because of the players. Or will we see more of a Dusty May type of transition of, hey, fulfill your obligations, do what you got to do, go to the league if you get the opportunity, and you also get to get your players drafted, which we saw in the NBA draft. Michigan players went very high, and a lot of that is in part to their coach, even with him drafting his own player. So I do believe that this is something that's going to be a conversation. It's something that is going to be talked about. But when you are talking about the NBA draft, I just want to say that I am most excited for the Chicago Bulls. I have talked so much about Caleb Wilson. I think it is going to be a great time to be a Bulls fan. I believe he is box office. I believe he's going to put butt in seats. It is going to be great. But I am also going to give the Wizards some credit. And everyone should have known that Dybantsa, he was the number 1 overall pick. That should have been what everyone assumed. But again, the Wizards still kind of kept some intensity and suspense that maybe they could go elsewhere. But they said after they drafted him that he was always the guy. That's who they wanted. That's who they stuck with. I think for Darren Peterson, him going to Utah is a great situation. And I think he's going to look back at it and say, yeah, the number 1 pick would have been great to say, but Utah is building something. And like I said previously before in another episode, that is an organization that a lot of players like, and they like what the front office does. You hear good reviews. I get Utah might be a different conversation, but the Jazz organization itself seems to be upstanding in some ways. But it seems as though that was the best situation. And they said, too, in the draft process, it was always Darren for them as well, because they saw what he did against AJ in college basketball, and pretty much that was all that they needed to see. So they took real game film. I do believe if Utah would have had the number 1 overall pick, they would have picked Darren. I do believe that. But because of Washington and they already have Trae Young signed, it made sense to go with AJ, and AJ is going to be phenomenal. He's going to be a fun, exciting player to watch, and everyone should be excited about that. When I'm looking also throughout the other draft picks, Kingston Flemings to Atlanta, I've talked so highly of him during March Madness. That is the point guard that they need, a floor general who still has athleticism and a burst and can really play and be able to push tempo, but also knowing how to get the offense going. That was the best situation, the best pick. I love that Atlanta went and got Kingston Flemings. Again, if you haven't watched his tape, watch his tape. I was shocked the Clippers took the swing on Keaton Wagler. I was shocked about that. And I am interested to see how does that look going forward. That does also tell me that I do believe that Kawhi Leonard is about to be moved. And I think that should be happening very soon because a lot of movement is happening. But I was shocked about that. I think, too, I'm looking at the Spurs and OKC. They kind of had a battle of the drafts. I like the moves that the Spurs made in getting 2 bigs. I like that they went and got the thing that they had a weakness in during the playoffs, not having bag-up bigs and not having another forward or size and length that could be able to go out there and give Wemby a rest. I'm also looking at OKC, and they went and drafted a Dybantsa from Michigan, a 7-footer center that also helps your problem that you had during the playoffs, but specifically the conference finals, in guarding Wemby. So I'm looking at the Spurs. I'm looking at OKC. I felt like they made direct moves to what they needed at that time and what they saw were weaknesses. I am excited for Summer League. This draft class, there's a lot of stars, and get familiar with them now. They're going to be so much fun to watch, and it's going to be exciting to see them grow. A lot of them are going to be in really direct impact situations. Tell me who you have for Rookie of the Year. Who do you believe is going to really be able to push their team to a playoff run? Leave me a voicemail with your takes on this NBA draft class at speakpipe.com/Lachelle Show. I want to hear from you guys, especially with what this is about to be looking like with our first round picks, second round picks. What team got one of the sleepers of the draft? What team did you wish would have drafted better? Which pick made sense? What picks didn't? But let me know. Leave me a message, and we'll talk about it next episode. Before we head out for this episode, I want to give you guys 2 teams just to do some research on and kind of start to get familiar with, because these are my 2 early predictions for these 2 teams. Completely different sports. Number 1, LSU college football. Be on the lookout for what LSU is going to be able to do this year. I've talked about it a little. I want to talk about it a little bit more. I'm just telling you now, because college football fans, the season's about to start, and I don't want you to be shocked when we're looking towards the end of the season. Everyone's like, hey, LSU might be national championship contenders. I'm just saying, watch out for them. Second, women's college basketball. USC women's basketball is about to be dangerous. There's a lot of shooters and scorers on that floor. We got number 1 overall recruits, the sophomore year of Jazzy Davison, who just was the number 1 overall recruit last year. Then we got Juju Watkins coming back. Let me tell you right now, buy stock in it. USC women's basketball, I'm going to just say it. I'm believing Final Four bound. Barring any injury, in anything catastrophic happening, that team is going to be hard for teams to guard. They're going to put up a ton of points this year. Defensively, I think they're going to be able to really put a lot of on-ball pressure, but I'm telling you, they are going to score, and they're going to be fun to watch. So don't say I didn't warn you. Thank you guys for listening to this week's episode. I appreciate you always. If you're taking time out of your busy day, your schedule, in the car, at work, at the gym, running errands, I appreciate you so much for listening to the Lachelle Show. Remember, leave me a voicemail at speakpipe.com/Lachelle Show. Give me your question, your hot take, your opinion. It could be on anything going on in the sports world. It even could be on Love Island if you want me to talk about it, because I am a Love Island watcher, guilty as charged. But I appreciate you guys so much, and you'll be hearing from me next week.